Iba ako. That means I am different in my native language, Tagalog. I primarily identify as Filipino, but I am also half Irish. I believe that I am different, the same way that every culture is different and unique, just like every person. I used to move around a lot when I was a kid. I wasn't very good at making new friends, and I was only ever exposed to the culture that my family brought. Meeting people can be so intimidating. You don't know who they are, how they're going to react to you, or whether they're going to even like you, especially when you're the new kid who's about to be submerged in something very unfamiliar. Meeting these kids in this neighborhood that I moved into that were of a different culture taught me that just because there's a difference in language doesn't mean that I should be afraid of meeting new people and that I should have a more open mind. The first time I met these kids was when I moved into this neighborhood when I was in the 6th grade. I learned that the neighborhood that I live in is very diverse in culture. I met my neighbors briefly. I met the neighbors right across the way who were Hispanic with 2 kids, and then my neighbors directly below me who were an Arabian family with also 2 kids. And then there was also my neighbors who were diagonally below me, and they're an elderly Portuguese couple. The neighbors directly across from me had a daughter. Her name is Natalie. She was about a year older than me. She invited me to go hang out with her and some of the other kids. And I was extremely hesitant to do so. So she sat me down and talked to me for a little bit until I was a little bit more comfortable. And this, like I said, made me a lot more comfortable. It turned my uncertainty avoidance from a very high level to a more moderate level. Then, once I was comfortable, she introduced me to everyone. The first time I met these kids, they immediately accepted me, despite an unknown cultural barrier. They asked me questions just like any other person. They asked me, "Where are you from?" or "How old are you?" And after a while of talking with them, I became more comfortable, just like with other classmates that I've had from other schools I've been with. Then eventually the conversation started to switch over in language. They started speaking Spanish, and I didn't understand anything that they were saying. So I decided to distance myself. I just stayed quiet. I didn't contribute to the conversation. I was afraid that they weren't gonna like me because I didn't speak Spanish, so I decided to say nothing instead. Eventually, one of them looked at me and asked me something in Spanish, and I had to face that fear and tell them that I couldn't understand anything that they were saying. And they asked me like, "Oh, well, why didn't your parents teach you how to speak Spanish?" And I let them know that was because I wasn't Hispanic. I ended up having to tell them that I was actually Filipino. And then they replied with, "I don't look Filipino." And I had to tell them further more about my heritage and let them know that I'm also half Irish, and that's why I don't completely look like one of those cultures. I obviously don't look Irish because I have dark hair, tan skin, and dark eyes, but I don't fully look Filipino because I have some defining features that aren't exactly Filipino. I was super afraid they weren't going to accept me, but to my surprise, they were totally accepting of this, and they just continued talking to me just in English though. This let me know that this interaction was so much better for me when it came to meeting new people. I was genuinely afraid of meeting new people, and I was closed-minded because of my own perception of people. If I was to experience this again, I would be so much more excited rather than extremely timid like I was. I am a very extroverted person, so I probably would have talked more rather than been hesitant. I learned that every person is very unique and that every culture can be very accepting of different things, especially when they know that you're from a different culture. This also taught me to keep a more open mind when meeting other people, because the other culture just might be as hesitant or have a high uncertainty avoidance just the same way that I did. And I want them to know that I'm very accepting the same way that they accepted me that day. So we all have had our intercultural experiences, each one unique. I learned to be more open-minded and not have any fear when it comes to meeting new people. I also learned that language does not define who we accept. And it was just a bunch of kids who taught me that. We are all people, we are all human, we are all different.